Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The storm had rolled in without mercy, the kind of rain that drums against the windows like restless fingers, tapping, daring you to notice. Inside, though, the air was heavier than the storm itself. I could feel it in the way he looked at me, not a casual glance, not the easy comfort of a man I had spent years with, but something sharper, more deliberate. His eyes lingered, as if tracing the edges of a thought he wasn't saying out loud. I stood by the window for a moment, watching the streaks of water race each other down the glass, but what I felt wasn't outside. It was the heat rising behind me, his presence filling the room before his hands even moved. My breath caught when I turned, and he was closer than I expected. Too close. The lamplight threw shadows across his face, softening the years that had carved lines of strength into him. His shoulders, broad beneath his shirt, brushed mine as he leaned, not enough to call it intentional, but enough to send a ripple through me. My skin prickled. My heart pressed harder against my ribs, and I tried to hide the tremor in my chest with a steady breath. It didn't work. He noticed. "Cold?" he asked, though we both knew I wasn't. His voice was low, carrying more warmth than the blanket wrapped around me. I shook my head, but the small smile tugging at his lips told me he saw the truth. The space between us shrank with every second, unspoken words pulling us closer. His hand lifted, almost lazily, brushing a strand of damp hair from my cheek. The touch was nothing, barely a graze of fingers, but it lit something in me that the storm couldn't drown out. My breath hitched, softer this time, like it belonged only to him. His eyes dropped, just briefly, to my lips. That single glance was enough to set my whole body humming, as if the fire he carried had found a spark in me. And then, nothing. Just a pause. A silence that burned louder than thunder. We hovered there, right on the edge, with the rain pounding against the world outside and his warmth burning through the space between us, daring me to close it. The pause stretched between us, thick and charged, like the very air had learned to hold its breath. His hand, still hovering near my cheek, drifted lower as though gravity itself wanted it to stay. Fingers brushed my jawline, then lingered at the edge of my neck, light enough to pretend it was nothing, heavy enough that I could feel my pulse pounding against his skin. I shifted slightly, meaning to step back, but instead my hand grazed his. Warm, steady, rougher than mine. The kind of touch that carried years of work, of life, of him. It should have been an accident, but neither of us moved away. Instead, my fingers curled, just barely, like they'd been waiting for this excuse to know the shape of him. His eyes caught mine again, dark and unwavering. I saw it there, the question, the dare, the pull of something dangerous. My lips parted, not with words, but with the quiet ache of a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Don't," I whispered, though even I wasn't sure if I meant it as a warning or a plea. A smile flickered at the corner of his mouth, slow, knowing, a little cruel. That look, that tilt of power, made my stomach twist. It wasn't just want. It was him showing me that he knew exactly what his closeness did to me, and he was enjoying the storm it caused. The rain outside grew harsher, rattling the window. Inside, the only sound was my pulse rushing in my ears and the faint hum of his laugh, low, like velvet, sliding under my skin. My body leaned without permission, my shoulder brushing his chest, and I felt the heat of him bleed through the thin space between us. His hand slipped lower, not bold, but deliberate, tracing the length of my arm, leaving sparks in its wake. Every nerve felt awake, alive. His thumb brushed over the inside of my wrist, where my heartbeat betrayed me, quick and desperate. Then, a sudden clap of thunder. I startled, instinctively stumbling forward. He caught me. Hard, certain. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me tight against him. We froze there, breath against breath, too close to deny what had been circling us all along. The storm outside roared. Inside, another one was about to break. And then, silence. We didn't move. Couldn't. The line was gone, and yet we hadn't crossed it. Not yet. The thunder faded into a low rumble, but the storm inside the room didn't. His arms were still around me, steady, certain, like he had no intention of letting go. I should have pulled back. I should have created space, set things right. But instead, I stayed, caught in that dangerous stillness where every second felt like permission. His breath stirred against my temple, warm and uneven. Just that small brush of air sent a tremor down my spine. My hands rested lightly against his chest, and I could feel the rise and fall beneath my palms, slow, controlled, but far from calm. He was holding back, the same way I was, and that restraint only made the tension unbearable. Then, almost deliberately, he leaned closer, his lips hovering near my ear. "You're trembling," he murmured, his voice roughened by something he wasn't admitting. "I'm not," I whispered, though my body betrayed me. He laughed softly, a breath against my skin, and the sound was worse than a touch. It made me want to close the distance, to dare him to go further. Instead, he tested me. His hand shifted lower, sliding down the curve of my back before retreating, as though he wanted me to feel the loss of it. My heart hammered. My body leaned forward instinctively, chasing the warmth he had pulled away. I caught myself and stepped back, forcing air between us. My eyes darted to the window, to the storm, anywhere but his face. But then, in that same instant, he moved, brushing past me as though to reach for the blanket draped over the chair. His arm grazed mine, intentional in its casualness, and my breath caught. I could smell him, rain, soap, something distinctly his, and my resolve crumbled. When I turned back, he was watching me. Not politely, not distantly, but with that steady, unflinching gaze that pinned me in place. His hand lingered on the back of the chair, but his focus was entirely on me. I tried to speak, to say something that would break the spell, but nothing came out. The silence grew louder, more dangerous, until finally he moved again. Slowly, deliberately, he closed the distance. His hand lifted, brushing a single fingertip along the inside of my wrist, the softest, most dangerous touch yet. And then, without warning, he leaned in, closer than before, lips just a breath away from mine. The air cracked with the weight of what was about to happen. His fingertip against my wrist lingered far longer than it should have, a fragile touch that carried more weight than any embrace. My pulse raced beneath his skin, betraying every secret I was trying to hold back. He leaned closer, and the space between us became so small it felt like the air itself was trembling. Our breathing shifted, shallow, uneven, like we were both afraid of what would happen if we exhaled too fully. His chest brushed mine when he inhaled, and for a dizzy second, I swore I could feel the storm outside sinking with the rhythm inside my ribs. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, his lips grazing the air above mine. I should have found the words. But my silence told its own story, and his smile was slow, dangerous, the kind that said he already knew my answer. His hand slid down the length of my arm, fingers trailing so lightly they felt like sparks dancing across my skin. When he reached my hand, he didn't hold it, he toyed with it. A brush of fingertips against my palm, a deliberate tease, as if daring me to close my fingers around his. "You're playing with fire," I breathed, though even my voice betrayed me. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. "And you're letting me," he murmured back, so close that every word stirred warmth against my lips. The tension coiled tighter. My body leaned forward before my mind could stop it, until our foreheads touched. His breath mingled with mine, slow and heavy, almost intoxicating. I closed my eyes for a second, and in that darkness, every sensation felt sharper, his thumb tracing the edge of my hand, his warmth pressing against me, the undeniable truth that restraint was slipping. When I opened my eyes, he was already looking at me, waiting, daring me to cross the last inch. My lips parted, not for words, but for the pull that felt inevitable. And then, the door creaked. A sound so small, but sharp enough to cut through everything. We froze, still caught in that electric nearness, as if the world had just remembered we weren't alone. The storm roared outside. Inside, silence burned hotter. We hadn't crossed the line. But in that suspended moment, we both knew we were already past the point of no return. The creak of the door faded into silence, but no one entered. It must have been the wind, I told myself, though my pulse still thundered. His forehead lingered against mine for a beat longer, both of us caught between restraint and surrender. And then he stepped back, slow, deliberate, like a man reclaiming control. I thought the moment had passed. But it hadn't. The storm surged again, rattling the windows so fiercely that I jumped, knocking over the half-filled glass of wine on the nightstand. It spilled across the floor, crimson spreading over the wooden planks. "Careful," he muttered, already moving closer. His hand found my wrist as if guiding me away from the mess, steady and protective. But instead of letting go, he held on. Too long. My breath caught. I glanced down at our joined hands, then up at his eyes, darker now, heavier. The tension hadn't broken at all, it had only shifted, grown hungrier. He reached for the bottle on the dresser, poured what was left of the wine into a single glass, and offered it to me. "Share." The smirk that curved his mouth wasn't innocent. It was a challenge. His fingers brushed mine as I took the glass, lingering on purpose. The rim was still warm from his touch when it pressed against my lips. I drank, slow, my eyes never leaving his. He watched me, a flicker of something sharp behind his gaze. Possessive. Dangerous. The kind of look that made my stomach twist with both fear and excitement. When I lowered the glass, he took it back, tilting it just enough to sip from the exact spot my lips had touched. His eyes locked on mine the entire time, as if to say he'd claimed more than just a taste. My chest tightened. My body betrayed me, leaning toward him as though pulled by a string. And when I stumbled slightly on the slick floor where the wine had spilled, his arms were there again, catching me before I could fall. This time, neither of us moved away. His hands gripped my waist, firm and possessive, holding me flush against him. My palms pressed against his chest, the heat of him searing through the thin barrier of fabric. The storm raged louder, but inside, the sound that consumed me was his breathing, rougher now, uneven, like he was fighting the same war I was. His eyes dropped to my mouth. Mine to his. The glass slipped from his hand and landed on the dresser with a muted clink, forgotten. "Still think we can stop this?" he whispered, his voice low, taunting, daring. I wanted to answer, but my words dissolved into the heat of the moment. Our faces hovered closer, my lips tingling with the ghost of a kiss not yet taken. Inevitable. That's what it felt like. Like the storm itself was pushing us together, daring us to cross the line. And just as his lips brushed mine, darkness. The power went out. The room plunged into shadow. We froze. Again. On the very edge, with nowhere left to hide. The lights flickered out, plunging the room into darkness. For a heartbeat, only the storm remained, its roar against the glass, its fury pressing at the walls. And yet, in that blackness, he was the only thing I could feel. His hand still firm at my waist, his body heat anchoring me against the chaos outside. I should have stepped away. Instead, I leaned in. Our foreheads met, the simplest touch, yet it shattered the wall we'd been building. His breath came ragged, brushing across my lips. The absence of light made every sound sharper, every shift of fabric louder, every heartbeat deafening. "You know what this means," he whispered, his voice rough, breaking just enough to betray how much he'd been holding back. My hand slid upward, resting over his chest. His heart pounded hard beneath my palm, wild and unrestrained, a mirror of my own. I let my fingers linger there, tracing the heat of him through the thin fabric. "I know," I murmured, my voice barely more than air. His grip tightened at my waist, pulling me closer. My body yielded before my mind could argue, pressed against him in a way that erased every inch of distance. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one between us. Then, his lips brushed my temple. Not my mouth. Not yet. Just that one lingering kiss, feather-light, charged with everything we weren't saying. It was more dangerous than anything else he could have done. I exhaled shakily, every nerve alive. If we do this, there's no going back. He drew in a slow breath, his forehead still against mine. Maybe that's the point. For a suspended moment, the room held only us, our tangled breaths, our trembling bodies, our restraint fraying into threads. The climax of everything unspoken balanced there, ready to break. And then, a flash of lightning through the window lit his face, sharp and undeniable. His eyes weren't just hungry. They were hiding something. A secret. The realization struck cold against the heat of the moment. He wanted this, yes, but there was something else he wasn't telling me. Something that would change everything. Before I could ask, he leaned in again, lips hovering a whisper away. The storm crashed outside. Inside, temptation became inescapable. And just like that, the line between us vanished. The lightning faded, leaving only the sound of rain hammering the windows and the echo of my heartbeat in the silence. His lips hovered close, temptation heavy between us, but instead of claiming the moment, he pulled me tighter into his arms. Not urgent. Not reckless. Just steady, deliberate, as if he knew I needed to feel safe before anything else. The storm outside raged, but inside his embrace, the world stilled. My cheek pressed against his chest, the rhythm of his heart grounding me. His hand moved slowly up my back, tracing circles, as if reminding me this wasn't only about desire. It was something deeper, something neither of us had dared to name. When I finally pulled back, his eyes searched mine. For the first time that night, there was softness there. Not just hunger, but vulnerability. "You're still trembling," he murmured. I smiled faintly, my voice breaking on a laugh. "And whose fault is that?" His answering grin was quiet, secretive, the kind of smile that said he enjoyed holding a power he'd never admit aloud. Still, there was gentleness behind it. He lifted a strand of hair from my face, tucking it behind my ear with a care that contrasted the fire he had stirred. The thunder rolled again, reminding me of where this all began, the storm, the shadows, the heat rising in a space too small to contain us. Only now, the storm inside me felt even louder than the one outside. We didn't cross the line, not completely. But the closeness we shared had changed something permanent. We both knew it. The lingering hug we shared wasn't just comfort, it was a promise, unspoken but undeniable. When he finally stepped back, the distance between us felt unnatural, wrong. My body ached at the absence of his warmth. Yet his eyes never let me go. That glance, dark, charged, unfinished, told me the story wasn't over. As the storm began to fade, a calm settled over the room. Stillness, but not resolution. His secret lingered in my mind, shadowing the sweetness of the moment. Whatever he was holding back, it wasn't gone. It was waiting. I turned back to the window, watching the rain slow to a mist, streaks of water tracing down the glass. The reflection staring back at me wasn't the same woman who had stood there hours earlier. Something in me had shifted, awakened. Behind me, I felt his gaze. Steady. Knowing. The kind of gaze that promised the fire he'd lit wasn't going out anytime soon. And just as I exhaled, easing into the silence, he whispered from behind me, low, certain, and dangerous. "This isn't the end." The storm might have passed, but inside, I knew he was right.